A big penalty for gambling firm William Hill. We'll look at the wider challenges facing the industry. And China warns Apple to strengthen its data security as Beijing's trade war with Washington rumbles on. Welcome to our Business Report. I'm Jagdip Cheema. Three gambling firms owned by William Hill are to pay penalties of £19.2 million, that's $24 million, for failing to protect consumers and weak anti-money laundering controls. The company, a subsidiary of Gibraltar-based 888 Holdings, was found by the UK's Gambling Commission to have allowed customers to bet big sums of money without proper checks. It says it seriously considered suspending the company's licence. Let's get more now from Dr. Carolyn Downs, who's a gambling industry specialist at Lancaster University. Nice to have you with us, Carolyn. Can you explain a bit more about William Hill's troubles here and why they were found guilty?
Yes, so this is the latest in a long line of quite large fines that have been issued by the Gambling Commission on a number of companies, actually, and the fines are getting progressively bigger, which suggests that actually companies aren't really taking compliance as seriously as they ought to. Of course, William Hill have announced that they've got new members of staff now and new management in place to try and fix things. The problem is, of course, what they were doing was they were not conducting proper affordability checks. So they're allowing gamblers to gamble well beyond their means. They're not checking the source of large deposits, or that's what they didn't do, which means that we don't know if the money that was being gambled was the proceeds of crime or not. They weren't actually conducting full checks on whether people were vulnerable to developing problem gambling. All of these sorts of things are required by the regulations in the UK, and this is why the Gambling Commission has come down on them like a proverbial ton of bricks.
Now, the industry itself is facing quite a few concerns internationally, such as advertising, etc. How big are these issues for the industry in terms of long-term concerns?
Well, regulatory frameworks vary widely across the globe. In parts of the USA, for example, sports betting still remains illegal, although since 2018, the American market has liberalised, and that's provided a really big opportunity for gambling companies to expand into America, and for American firms such as Caesars Entertainment to try and sort of expand by building on the expertise of European organisations. We've got very big markets, a very big market in gambling, but we've got gambling based in a lot of overseas countries. Online gambling, of course, can be based anywhere. So Malta, Cyprus, Gibraltar, as already earlier mentioned, are real centres where gambling companies are based, so they can take advantage of lower tax rates. Regulatory-wise, that makes gambling a little bit difficult to manage. So if you've got a company that's based in Gibraltar and they're selling gambling products in the USA or the UK, we've got three different regulatory frameworks potentially in play here. With regard to advertising, Belgium has just banned gambling advertising. And of course, everybody will have noticed that gambling advertising is very, very prevalent indeed. So we don't know quite how this affects player behaviour. The gambling industry say it doesn't affect player behaviour,
yes,
but other people say, well, it does. So it's a very difficult situation for the gambling industry at the moment, but also for regulators.
Dr. Carolyn Downs from Lancaster University, thank you very much for joining us and holding onto your camera there as well.
Thank you.
Let's stay here in the UK, where the Bank of England's officials have admitted that the speed of collapse of Silicon Valley Bank and its UK subsidiary took them by surprise. Speaking to MPs in the UK, Governor Andrew Bailey said it was the fastest collapse from health to death since Barings, and said it may mean that banking rules need updating. Meanwhile, in the US, Senate lawmakers are gathering in Capitol Hill today to discuss why Silicon Valley Bank and Signature Bank collapsed. Let's now cross to our North America business correspondent, Michelle Fleury, who's in New York. Michelle, what are we expecting from today's hearing?
Well, similar to the UK, we're going to be hearing from some of the key regulators here in the United States. So there are going to be representatives from the FDIC, from the Federal Reserve, and also from the Treasury Department, all of the kind of major agencies that have oversights of the bank. And we've got a kind of preview of what you're likely to hear, at least from the perspective of lawmakers. The chairman of the committee, Sherrod Brown of Ohio, basically has said, look, I understand why many Americans are angry, even disgusted, at how quickly the government mobilized when a bunch of elites in California were demanding it. So I think that gives you kind of a flavour of where certainly some on the committee will be coming from. From the Republican perspective, there is also going to be a huge emphasis on what tools the regulators already had and why they didn't foresee this happening in the first place.
Michelle, thank you very much for that. And I know there's some comments due out in the next hour or so, and we'll touch base with you later to find out what was said. Now, as the trade war between the US and China continues to rumble on, one of the beneficiaries could be Mexico. Increasingly, US multinationals are opening their operations closer to home. As a result, cities in northern Mexico are seeing a manufacturing boom. Our North America business correspondent Samira Hussain reports from Monterrey in Mexico.
Dawn breaks over Monterrey and the city rumbles into life. Geopolitical tensions thousands of miles away are birthing a manufacturing revival here. Welcome to Mexico's industrial heartland. Early morning shift at one of the many factories. As more companies nearshore, that is, bring production closer to home, Mexico has seen a surge in manufacturing. These are the workers driving the state's economic boom. One company, Plasti Exports, recently built this 13,000 square meter facility to meet the meteoric demand for manufacturing.
In the last 5 years, we basically doubled our size. We expect in the next 2 years to double our size again.
So where are all these customers coming from?
China.
This state of Nuevo León has been one of Mexico's manufacturing hubs for decades. Now that it's become just so difficult to make goods in China to sell to America, there has been an explosion of new customers coming to Nuevo León.
Nearly 35,000 trucks go between the U.S. and Mexico each day. Last year, trade between the two countries was more than $660 billion, almost a 20% increase from the year before. And it's not just Mexican factories making goods for Chinese companies. Now 2 Chinese firms are building this massive industrial park here called Hofusan. All the new business also means new jobs, a good problem to have, but the rapid expansion is testing the city's capacity.
So we have more or less 100,000 new immigrants that come to the metro area of Monterrey and Nuevo León each year, which is not an organic way to grow. And we are struggling somewhat to accommodate all these people.
This rapid expansion is changing the makeup of the state and the country's position in global economics. If this pace of growth continues, Mexico could even overtake China as the world's factory. Samira Hussain, BBC News, Monterrey, Mexico.
Mexico's manufacturing boom there, one to keep an eye on. In other news, Twitter's boss Elon Musk has announced a shake-up of the social media's platform-paid Twitter Blue feature. From the 15th of April, only verified subscribers will have posts recommended to other users and be allowed to vote in polls. Last week, the firm said it would remove the verified status of some legacy accounts, which date from before Mr. Musk bought the firm. Users currently pay $7 a month for the blue tick verification, which allows access to additional features. And China's e-commerce company Alibaba is set to separate into 6 independent companies to boost its share value. The immediate effect of the news was to lift the share price by 6.7% in New York pre-market trading. Each unit reports Alibaba will be led by a separate chief executive and will raise its own capital. That's all for now. I'll be back for more business news later.
Hello, you're watching BBC News. Welcome if you're watching in the UK or indeed around the world. I'm Ben Boulos.